Hi friends, it's Sienna here today, and today we're going to be sewing up the relaxed Raglan Romper / dress pattern. Super excited about this one. It's super cute. It's got a placket on it. It's a Raglan style. It's got different style sleeves. It's got pants, shorts, capri length, skirt option. So many options. Super cute. I love it. Let's get to it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to place the knit interfacing on the back of our under and our over placket to give it some stability. Alright, and then we're going to fold those two raw edges in 3/8 of an inch. Now we're going to grab the under placket, the one that's wider, the bigger one, and we're going to fold it in half. Alright, so now we're going to put our front bodice pieces right side up on our mat. So here's our neckline, here's our arm side. This would be our front edge. We're going to grab our under placket. The wider one is going to go on this side, the left side, and then the narrower one, the smaller one, is going to go on the other side. Remember to keep your sides that are like curved to match up the neckline right here, and we're going to attach them right sides together along this raw edge. We're going to sew right over that first crease, the 3/8 seam allowance crease right here. We're going to top stitch it down all the way down on both sides. So right sides together right here, and top stitch over that crease that we created earlier. As you're gonna top stitch, remember that it's important to keep in mind that this is a knit pattern, so you want to make sure that you are using a needle that is good for knit, so like a ballpoint needle, jersey needle. And it's also important to back tack, like go forward and backwards at the beginning so that it doesn't come apart later. Alright, once that's finished, this is the bigger placket right here, which is the under placket, the one that you folded in half and you created that crease. We're going to open that up. We're going to fold this crease, the seam allowance we just created here where we sew it up, towards the placket, so steam it towards the placket. And then we're going to, where we created that crease, keeping this edge folded, we're going to fold that right over that allowance right there. So you're covering that little allowance that you just created, that seam allowance. And that is going to go, we're not going to sew that yet. It's gonna be sewn in a separate step in a little bit, but we're just prepping it. So if you want to like pin it or whatever so it will stay down over it, you can go ahead and do that. So this is for the under, which is the longer one, the wider one. And then the other one, we're going to do the same as on that one where we steam the seam towards the placket. But then we're just going to go ahead and grab the whole placket and flip it over. So the placket's basically going to be on the inside, which will encourage this seam allowance to come over as well, like that. The bottom edge. It's not, I guess it's not really the seam allowance, it's just the bottom edge of it. All right. Like I said, we'll work on this a little bit later. I'm just gonna kind of pin it so it stays down a little bit. And we're gonna go, the next step will be to grab our backs, our back bodice, and sew that seam here at the back bodice. And I get a question often, why do we have a back seam? Because do you see how it's like a little bit curved? That gives you a really nice shape on your back because your back is not really straight. If you feel that your back, it kind of does a little curve at the bottom. So this gives you a really nice fit along the curve of the back. Now while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and steam these sleeve hems. I am doing the sleeveless version, so you still have to have like these little sleeve things to help you with the sleeveless version. So if you're doing a longer sleeve or whatever version, you still could go ahead and do this memory crease for your hem, or a 1/2 inch hem allowance. And what we're going to do is we're going to attach them to our front bodice. So here's my front. Here's my front. Here's my front part. Here's my arm side. And we're going to attach the front of the sleeve. They're gonna, well, I think this actually is gonna come right over here. That's gonna look so nice. We're gonna grab the sleeve and we're going to match it up, right sides together. So they should be matching. Your sleeve should be able to fit right in there. If you're forcing it, then it's not the right one. See how when I put it on the other side, you got some extra inches here. That means that this is not the right side. So make sure that you put it on the right side. They should fit correctly. All right, so now that they are attached to the front and our back seam has been sewn, we're gonna attach the sleeves to the back bodice. So we're gonna open that up. Back bodice face up. Here's my line on the back that I just sewed together. Front bodice goes right in front of it, and the sleeve should match right up, as the other side of the sleeve should match with the back bodice now. So right sides together, and make sure that you're facing the right one. See how this is the front placket here that goes towards the inside. So that's where the sleeve is gonna go. Time for our neckband. And I think this is the part that everybody's most scared about. This is the part that's the hardest part of all, maybe? I don't know. It is kind of scary when you get to the neckband, but we're going to do it together and we're going to be just fine. I think we can do this. Can we do it? Do you think we can do it? I think we can do it. First thing we're doing is we're folding our neckband piece wrong sides together, and we're gonna create this crease right here before we sew it on. All right, and then we're going to grab our bodice and we're gonna open it up. Here's my front bodice, here's my back seam, here's my other front side. So there it is, it's opened up. We're gonna grab our neckline, our neckband, we're gonna fold it in half and find our half point, and I'm just gonna do a little snippet, and I'm gonna match that up right here where my back seam is. Now we're going to go to one side, and here is my under placket, the one that's longer, the big placket. And this neckband is going to go all the way to the half crease. See that half crease right there? I'm gonna pin it right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in with a basting stitch, and we're going to baste that first. So just baste it on right here, about 1 inch or 2, and we're gonna do the same on the other side. Make sure it's straight and it's not curved. And on this side it's gonna come right to this crease right here, like right to the edge. So like right where they meet, but you're also going to just go ahead and baste it on right there. So we're gonna put a basting stitch. Now, I'm usually really stubborn when it comes to basting stitches. You all know this already about me. But I will say that this is really important. If you want to have a neat neckband on this pattern, you need to make sure that you're basting, because then we're gonna sew it on and make sure that it all looks right. And if you don't baste and you just go for it like I usually do, it might come off or not fit just correctly, and then you'll be upset afterwards because then you have to take a whole like serger stitch off, which is harder to do than just take a basting stitch off. A basting stitch is just a long straight stitch on your sewing machine that later you can come back and just pull it out. No harm done. So let's do that. All right, while we're here, we're going to grab that placket and we're gonna fold it right on top like so. So you're going backwards and you're placing it, you're sandwiching that neckband right inside your placket. So here's the placket. We're gonna fold it right over and we're going to do the same thing. We're gonna baste on here to make sure that they fit correctly. All right, here's the other side. You can see you went right to the edge. I'm gonna grab this whole placket and fold it right on top, right sides together, and we're going to baste them together again. So now we're gonna go back to where that neckband is. I'm gonna turn it right side out, and we're gonna make sure that your neckband fits correctly. Now look at mine. I have a little piece of it hanging out. Do you see that? There's a little piece. That means that I didn't tuck it in enough when I sewed it together. So look at this right now. I can grab my basting stitch and just as easily as I did it, pull it out, remove that basting stitch, and see how it didn't, there's this gap right here. That means that I didn't go close enough. So now I can remove this other basting stitch. See how easy that was? And make sure that my seam, my neckband goes all the way in. You want it flushed out like that. So then I can go ahead and go back to my, see how it's flushed right here? You can see that. I can go ahead, go back to my sewing machine and do the same, repeat the same steps over again on this side to make sure that it's nice and flushed when I sew it. And that's much easier than once I sew my whole neckband on and then I turn it and realize, no. Okay, let's see this side. Now look at this side. A little bit better. Still have a little bit of the notch gap right there. Don't know what I was thinking, but it is a little bit better. But I can go ahead and go fix it. I'm gonna go fix it, and then we'll come back and do the next step. But I'm gonna do this as many times as it takes to make sure that it looks perfect. But look at how easy it is to just pull this basting stitch out. Much easier than having to pull something that we already sewed. So let me go work on that, and then we'll come back to the next step. Alrighty, I got them just how I wanted them. So you want to make sure that they come out clean and they look really, really good. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it right back around like it was. And now we're going to sew it on. So we're going to like stretch and sew your neckband over where you did that basting stitch and everything. We're just sewing the whole neckband on right sides together. Alright, so now we're going to turn those neckbands right side out. You can remove that basting stitch so they're not just sitting there annoying you, getting in your way. And you're going to turn it and poke it out. I'm just going to use this knitting needle I have because I cannot find my tool that I had that was meant for this. It looks really good. And then we're gonna give it a good steam. And if you want to top stitch, you are more than welcome to. I'm not gonna top stitch. I'm just going to leave it as is. And then this is now when we're going to go ahead and top stitch that placket. So here's my one placket. We're going to top stitch down, around, and up. Just like top stitch that placket down. This side is going to have like a little area here that comes out. And then on the other side, the other placket, it looks like this, and we're also just doing the same thing, top stitching it on. I'm going to steam that, give it a really good steam because it got all wobbly from steaming the other side and not steaming that and not paying attention to the placket. So we're going to steam it and we're going to top stitch it here at the edge all the way down. I know that the right way to sew this would be to start from the front, but I like to sew it from the back because then I can see exactly where I'm sewing. So that's what I'm doing. Also, I feel like with knit, when you add interfacing, it's better to sew it from the back so you have a smoother line. Sometimes if you try to sew it from the top, the interfacing, it's latched onto the back piece and not that front piece, so this front piece will gather and bunch up. So it looks better when I do it from the back. So just take that into consideration. I know that, I don't know, some people say that you need to be sewing it from the front or whatever, but that's what I do. All right, friends, we're almost done with these placket. So that was not that hard, and the fact that we basted it on first I think really helped that to give it a really nice look here at the top. So now we're going to sew up the bottom. What we're going to do first is here, if you see, you have two little pieces. The under one, it's kind of folded over that seam allowance, so you're going to grab that seam allowance right there that's folded. You see how that's folded in? You're going to clip right underneath it and open it up. Okay, so that way you can open it up like this, like so. And we're gonna grab, we wanna make sure that we're facing it correctly. We wanna grab the bottom of the, I'm gonna face it wrong side out so that way you can see them, because you wanna face them right sides together. So here's my placket one side. This is the placket I cut right here. This is the under, and then here's the other placket, and you see that this little piece is just hanging out right there. And we're going to match them up, raw edges right sides together right here. The under the placket area. So they should match up. The plackets should match up correctly, and right here you're going to sew starting at the bottom all the way up and do a back stitch right here at the middle so that they can match up. So they're matching up, so they'll like match up right here like so, because this is going to come over on top of it. So we're gonna go over there and sew this little area. Now that we've sewn that piece right there, we're gonna grab our placket, and they're gonna be like right on top of each other. So here's the under and here's the other one. They're facing, they're matching. This is the under, I'm sorry. And so right here they should match up really nicely together. And when we turn it to the right side, they are overlapping, and it should be, okay, I didn't sew it as close. I need to sew it all the way to that seam allowance. Since you see right here, there's a little piece missing, I'm gonna have to re-sew that. It means I didn't catch all the way up, see? I didn't catch it all the way. So that needed to be caught in there. That's okay, we can seam rip and redo it. I have my little seam ripper right here, handy dandy, always mocking me. I'm just kidding. Always ready to help. So I'm gonna fix that. You fixed it if you didn't go close enough, but you probably did go close enough. I probably was the only one who made the mistake. But I wanted to show you the mistake because there's always a way to fix your mistakes. I feel like sometimes we're so hard on ourselves if we make a mistake, but that's okay. We're learning, and we're getting it done, and it's gonna turn out amazing. So let me go fix this, and then we'll come back to the next step. How in the world did I get it to fit so nicely? I don't know, but it does. And the flower kind of looks like it's continuing, so that is perfection. Oh my goodness, I love that. So what we're going to do now is right here at the bottom where the plackets meet, right here at the edge, we're going to create a little box. So we're gonna sew on our sewing machine like a little box with an X in the middle to kind of keep that placket from opening right here, close that gap. And then you're going to either add your buttonholes if you're doing buttonholes, or if you're doing snaps, you can go ahead and add the snaps now. I'm going to leave that job for later because I like to put things off, but we're gonna do this square first and then we're gonna move on to the next step. All right, now comment below and let me know what you thought about that placket. Was that as easy as you thought it was gonna be, or was that harder than you thought it was gonna be, or are you still a little bit intimidated? Let me know, and if you have questions, let me know as well. Now we're going to face it right sides together, and we're going to sew this sides. Now remember, I'm doing the sleeveless, so I barely have anything here to put together before the side seams. So like right here, it's just a little tiny bit, which is really just like our hem area. And then just sew those sides together, right sides together. All right, our bodice is put aside. We'll work on putting that together. Now, one of the things I want to do here soon is I'm going to want to hack this into just a top, a separate top and pattern. So I will be working on that because I think already that will make a gorgeous top as well if you just wanted to wear it with jeans or something different to do it separate. So I will be working on that because it's super cute. Anyway, let's move on to the bottoms. So if you are not making pockets, obviously you're gonna cut well, obviously it's showing, but I forgot I am making pockets. So I'm going to fold this piece down and I'm going to cut that off of my pattern piece, of my pattern, because I am making pockets. So I wanna add the pockets on. So I'm going to cut that off. Now, if you are not making pockets, you can skip this step, but I am, of course, adding pockets. I add pockets like pants. I always want pockets with pants. Some dresses, I want pockets. It's like straight dresses. I don't usually always do pockets, but I like pockets, so we're gonna do pockets. So we've got our pocket, our bottom. As you can see here is one side is your crotch seam, so it like curves. The pocket is straight, so make sure that you attach it to the right side, the correct side. You don't want to attach it to the curved side because that's your crotch seam, so that's gonna throw you off. We're going to grab our pocket, not our pocket outer, but our pocket liner, and we're going to place it right on top. You can see the lines on it will match right up. There's a straight line right on it like this, and that is what you want to match up, right sides together here on that side. And we're going to sew it on with your preferred straight stretch stitch, because this is woven, this is knit, so you want to use a stretch stitch on everything that we're doing today. The placket, I used some straight stitching because it's not going to be stretched out. But when you have anything that it's going to be stretched out, this fabric's going to be stretched out on, like usually a neckline or here the pocket will probably get stretched out a little bit. You don't want to use just a regular straight stitch because once you stretch this fabric, the stitch is going to pop. You need a stretch stitch so that if you stretch it, then the fabric will give and the stitch won't pop. So let's go ahead and sew that up. Alrighty, now that is sewn on right here, as you can see, you can open it up and we're going to grab our pocket liner and we're going to, it says pocket outer, and we're going to grab it and place it right on top of our pocket and line it all up. Hold on, wrong way. This is the wrong way. I'm trying to put it the right way. Here we go. Use your pattern piece. Don't throw it away before you have a chance to use it. This is the wrong one. That's why it's not fitting, because it's the wrong side. Here's the right side. You want that pocket to fit. So if it's not fitting, like that one wasn't fitting, I was turning it around in circles and it wasn't fitting, that's because it's not the one you want to use. See how it fits perfectly right here? The bottom and the edge. This is the curved edge, which is the side that's going to be on the outside of your bottoms. And then we're going to sew it along the outer edge and the bottom edge. All right, so we've got our pocket, or pocket, and when we turn it right side up, you'll see that you'll have that pocket side stick out right here, and you want to line it up here at the edge so that they line up nice and correctly. And then we're gonna, in a minute, we're going to go ahead and baste over here, up here at the top and on the side. Let me turn it around to the other side so you can really see it. And you're gonna do this, this is for if you're doing pockets on anything, like if you're doing whatever version you're doing, if you're doing the skirt version, the shorts version, or the pant version like I am, this is how you're going to do your pockets on all of their versions, all of the versions, I can't say the word, but you know what I mean. All of the ones you're doing, whatever version you're doing, there we go, we got it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to grab right here in this area where the pocket folds over, give it a good steam, and then top stitch it. Now you're not going to top stitch it to the pant, you're just going to top stitch this right here, like your pocket, so that it has a nice, this seam is nice and flat and top stitched. Honestly, you don't have to if you don't want to see the top stitching right there, but it gives that pocket, like it looks better if you top stitch it here, and it kind of sits nicer so it doesn't bulge out so much. I don't know if I want to top stitch it or not. I mean, you should, and it will give it a really nice look, but sometimes I'm just like, I just like the smooth, I don't want to bother with it. I don't want to mess it up. Anyway, so I might not top stitch. But you do want to baste here at the top, right here where the pocket is, and then the side where the pocket is. And the reason for that is because we're going to sew our pants sides and top later. And a lot of times if you don't baste that down, you might not catch it. If it moves or whatever, and then you end up having a gap and have to redo it. But here's our pocket, that's how it's going to end up, our pocket right here. So you can go ahead and top stitch here and baste here. Maybe I will top, I don't know. Comment below and let me know what you do. Do you top stitch or do you just leave it? I don't know what to do. All right, but I'm going to go baste it really quickly. I'm just gonna swing over, baste it, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so one of the main reasons to baste that pocket, I mean to top stitch that pocket, is so that it doesn't gape out on the bottom. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see what you all say on the comments below. Give me the negative and the positives about basting, top stitching that down. Let me know what you think. And I might go back later and kind of fix it. I don't know. Anyway, what we're going to do now is I'm laying my bottom. This is my front, laying it out on my mat because we're going to grab, this is my front, we're going to grab our back that corresponds to it, and we're going to place it right sides together. My crotch seam is right here on this side. This is my outer edge, so I gotta grab the one that when you face them together, they match up. So it would be this one, because this is my outer edge, and we're matching up the outer edge, right sides together, and then the inseams, right sides together. So we're gonna sew up our legs together. If you don't have a pocket, they will just match up right at the edge. You're going to do this for your shorts and your pants. If you're making in capri, and if you're making the skirt version, instead of having two pant legs, you end up having one panel and you're sewing the two sides together. So instead of having two sides together for the pants, for the one leg and then the other leg, you would just sew the two sides together for the skirts, the front and the back of the skirt. So you're not sewing this crotch seam, you're sewing down here the inseam. We're gonna sew the crotch later. Alrighty, so now we're going to grab one pant leg and we're going to turn it right side out. Now remember, this is for the pants and the shorts and the capri version. For the skirt version, you don't have to do this part because you already sewed the two sides together, so they are already attached. we're fitting one pant leg into the other to face them right sides together, and we're gonna match up the crotch seam, so that bottom seam right here, and then we're gonna go up the side, and they should match up correctly. The front with the front, and then the back with the back. If they don't match up, that means that you used the wrong, you put two fronts together, two backs together, which is kind of difficult. Not difficult, I've done it before actually. I say it's difficult to do, but I've done it. On this pattern though, because you can see that the rise is different, completely different, the front and the back. So that should help you when you are, if you're not doing pockets, which, you know, that also, if you're not doing pockets, then you're just attaching the legs together. Just make sure that your rise is different when you're making one leg and another leg. You want to make a front and a back so your rise will not match up, and then the front and a back, because if you place two that are the same, you're doing a back and a back and a front and a front, and then they're not going to end up being correctly. I speak from experience. Yes, I've done that before. Yes, I've done it before, and actually it's easier to do in smaller sizes too, because then the rise, it's more similar, but see that there's a different rise, and this is what we're going to sew up right there, and then our bottoms will be basically completed. So then we'll just have to attach them to our body, to our bodice and hem, and then we'll be done. All right, now we've got our bottoms, and our bottoms are finished. If you have your skirt or shorts or capris or whatever you have, now they're finished. Here they are. Now you got to decide now what you want to do. Do you want to do the elastic waistband or the drawstring waistband? And honestly, the first part of this is the same for either or. It's the second part, putting in the elastic or the drawstring, is a little bit different. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my bodice, and I'm going to, I mean, it's already quartered basically, because you've got your back seam, your front seam, and your side seams, and you have your quarters on your bodice, on your bottoms as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit our bodice. I'm just going to fit my bodice in, making sure to match up the front with the front of your bottoms, and that raw edge and at the bottom. You want to make sure that the front is with the front, or you're going to have a weird rise. And then match up your quarters. So like your side seams, your back seam, your front seam. Now that those are matched up, what you want to do is you want to make sure that they line up. So you want to line up your bodices, and this is where that basting stitch or your pocket comes in handy, so it doesn't fall down as you're trying to sew it. And we're going to clip them together at that raw edge, right sides together. Now what we're going to do is we got to create the casing. So instead of just sewing the raw edge together, we're going to go in an inch and sew a line all the way around to create that casing. So what you want to do is you want to do a stretch stitch on the inside. You can do double needle. I mean, I would probably just do a zigzag stitch, but you could also do a triple stitch or a cover stitch, whatever you want to do right there to sew it together. If I can give you any advice, it would be do not buy cheap thread, because when you're sewing it will snap on and on and on. So spend a little bit of extra on nice thread. Okay, I want to show you, I changed the thread to nicer thread, and I hope you can see how nice and even that is. When I was using the cheap thread, it kept trying to skip stitches. Do you see that? Skip stitches. So changing your thread really does make a big difference. Alrighty, so that is done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our scissors, and very carefully we're going to trim off the bodice side of this seam allowance. So see how you got two sides, you've got the bottoms and then you've got the bodice. We're going to remove the bodice, but you've got to do it carefully so that you don't rip a hole in your fabric or anything. So take your time with that. You're going like right up to the edge. You want to separate the bodice and the bottoms from each other so that you're not catching the wrong one as you're cutting it. All right, so now that we've sewn it together, we're going to turn the whole thing right inside out. And this is where there is a difference between if you're doing a drawstring or if you're doing elastic, which I'm doing elastic casing. But if you're doing a drawstring, what you're going to do here at the front of the bodice, you're going to add some interfacing, and you're going to add your grommets or your buttonholes right here within your inch allowance at the front. And then you're going to fold this up, the seam allowance up, and top stitch all the way around. Now, because I am doing elastic, we need to actually leave an opening. So I'm going to actually start from the back to top stitch. I'm going to top stitch all the way around, but I'm going to leave like a 2-inch gap to insert my elastic all the way around. So let's go ahead and top stitch this seam allowance down. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. You can use any kind of stretch stitch that you want to use. That is up to you. Make sure when you're sewing, you're just sewing it to your bodice. You're not sewing like both lines. I am going to do it from the inside, from the wrong side, because I want to make sure that I look and see that it's actually standing up straight and stitching it correctly. All right, I'm super excited. We're almost done. I've got my elastic cut to my measurement. I measured my waist and I went down, I think 3 inches. I like mine to be a little bit snug. I don't know, it's up to you how snug you want to make it. And then we're gonna go right here where we left that opening, and we're gonna fit that elastic right through it and go all the way around our whole romper. Now, if you're doing the casing, the casing, this is a casing. If you're doing the drawstring, you're going to just go in through your drawstring area and pull your drawstring through the whole bodice. All right, so once we get here, we're gonna take this off, if it comes off, and we're going to grab our elastic and we're going to face them right sides together and sew them up, stitch them together. Then we're going to fit our whole elastic through and finish up, close up that gap that we left. And then I'm gonna head over to my cover stitch and hem up my my hems, because we're done. So we did do the, remember we did the, what do you call it? The memory hem. So all you have to do is just fold down and top stitch and hem our bottoms of our pants. And then I'm going to, I haven't added buttons yet, I keep saying snaps, so I gotta do that as well. I think I'm going to go with white snaps. I have snaps or buttons. I'm not really sure. Comment below and let me know what you think I should do. Buttons or snaps? I'm not really sure what I want to do yet. So I'm gonna try it on and then probably figure it out after that. So let me go ahead and do all this so we can finish up our romper. All right, friends, we are finished. I think it turned out adorable, super, super cute. I love it. You may be wondering, what did you do with the buttons? Well, if you're if you are one of those people who like to just save time and hate buttonholes, I have a little trick for you. So, you know, this romper is made with knit, which means that it can stretch a little bit. So what I did is I put my romper on, I tried it on, and I pinned my placket up to a certain point, which was right here. And I tried to see if I could get in and out of it through this gap, the gap that I left up here, and I can. So I just did full buttons. I just sew them closed, so it doesn't open per se, but it still gives me the same effect, and I didn't have to do buttonholes. So that's just a little trick. If that's something that you want to do, you can do it with me, or you can just be brave and do actual buttonholes. So comment below and let me know what you're going to do: buttonholes, snaps, full buttons, whatever. And let me know what you think. Also let me know what version you're making today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please comment, like, share, subscribe if you haven't, so you never miss any of our tutorials. Go grab your pattern, sew it up with me, come share it on our Facebook, and tag us on Instagram. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.